So basically, we're wanting to take this line art and we're going to use pen and ink and get it to look like this. Welcome to the studio today, guys. Just thought I would bring you all along and show you some of my process. This is some of the artwork that I'm working on for a show that I'm applying for at the end of this week. So I got to get some stuff done. Some of the tools I'll be using to get to that point, and just some of the fun little quirky things that we do with these houses and stuff. This one's going to be mainly ink and then just some shading. I've got some larger ones I can show you a little bit of the style. Kind of like this style where it's a little more shaded. Now these aren't fully shaded because these I will watercolor. These are 12 by 16s. These I'm also trying to get finished so I can turn in for my application for my first church show. So let's go over some of the tools real quick. So we're going to go with the Micron 01 and we're going to go with a Micron 10. Now the 10's the bigger nib. And that'll be some of our heavy shading and stuff. I'm using a Strathmore Bristol. It's 11 by 14 and it's the 300 series. The Bristol's the smooth. Now these are 11 by 14 sheets and then I just cut them down to 5 by 7s. So but feel free if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you go in the description and you want to actually draw along with me, you can click on a link, sign up with your email, and it'll send you to a link that you can download this house just like it is, just thin lines. And then you can come back to this video and draw along with me. Enough of the yapping. First thing I do is I start off with my 01. I'm not used to drawing straight on like this, so if I accidentally turn my picture too much, just let me know. So I'm going to try to draw a little bit more straight on. So what I want to do is just kind of connect these boards. And I don't care if stuff overlaps. I don't care how perfect it is. I just want to give a little bit of depth. And since we're looking up at the house, you're probably going to see a little bit of the bottom of the board. So we'll just throw in another line there. Doesn't have to be pretty. Matter of fact, we'll probably put in a board there. Pull it in here. So then I want this a little thicker. Now this again is the 01 I'm using, so it has a little bit of and this you don't have to be perfect on the hatchet, just trying to get some resemblance of it being deeper. Same way here. And then I might come in towards the end and put a little more depth in there, just adding a little bit more where the shadows might be. A lot of times what I like to do is I'll take the Micron 10, and the first thing I'll do is I'll come in here just where it might be darker and put my shadow. So let's see, we want the sun coming this way. Yeah, we'll do it that way. So if the sun's coming this way, it's going to be darker on this side. Some darker underneath there. Same with our door. One of the reasons why I like doing this first and I should have done this before I started that, but is I like seeing where my shading is going to be to see where I can start and kind of remind me of which direction the light's coming from. Now this whole section over here is going to be darker, but you're still going to have some more prominent shadow area. All right, you can already see how that's kind of taking shape. All right, so let's put in some roof tiles. Oop, that was almost too big. That was the tin. Going back with the 01, I like to do more of the wood shingles. And it doesn't have to be pretty, like one can be even bigger than the other ones, one can be even smaller. Kind of give a little character. And then I go up over just a little bit just to give a little thickness. It can be just kind of a wonky line. Like I said, it doesn't have to be, you don't want them all to look the same because then it kind of draw your eye to it. You don't really want to draw your eye to it. Our minds are always looking for patterns, so the least a pattern you can make, the better. All right, so we'll give a little crooked going out here, just show some depth on these shingles. And with that said, we're going to go make this a little darker, make it look thicker. You can also make a little thicker lines with the 01 or even the 03. You just have to go over it a few times. I just like using the 10 because you can just get a little smoother line. All right, so let's see, what do we want to do next? We know this is going to be shadowed. They don't have to be perfect hatching. Now we got the bases in, we'll go up here. All right, so what I want to do is I like to draw a line inside the other line, and that's going to be more of a reflective. Then you want to kind of curl your lines with it. Like I said, it's kind of hard to do. I'm so used to turning the paper this way. You can get a better curl. And then make it a little jaggy. I like to give it a little bit of a reflective look. Then we're going to go a little bit darker under here. And then this back side will be a little... If you notice, sometimes I don't go full shade. I really kind of boogered this up. It kind of gives it the look. Just for some separation on the tiles there. So give it a little bit of depth on the top cap. And then what I like to do, I'm kind of putting a little bit of hatching underneath there just to give a little bit of depth of that cap that's across the shingles. And I'll show you a little fun thing I like to do. Like I said, I don't really follow the rules of shading. It's just kind of what I enjoy. But see how this goes in, so you think about how water would get between those two caps. So like I like to just bring a couple of flicks down. Just to give it like a little bit of water runoff. Like if I was watercoloring this would be, let's say the shingles were like orange or a yellowish orange color. This would be kind of like almost like a nail or something rusted. And then what I like to do is come in here and just every now and then just put a little darker spot. And you can do a couple of little flicks down like that. And then depending on if you want this as like tar shingles or maybe even like wood shingles. Wood shingles, you might even have a couple of little cracks going up. You can kind of show that with a little indentation. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you can just kind of come in here and do a little scribble. Kind of like you had a cracked shingle. Every now and then just kind of make one darker. fill in a spot. And you can already see that's kind of coming to life more. It's got a little more character to it. So let's darken this side over here a little bit. So the thickness of the shingle is kind of showing on this side. We want them kind of jagged like that. Let's put a little more darkness right here. Maybe this has a little, maybe that has a little bolt on it just for fun. It's a little darker on this back corner. As you can see, I kind of skip around all over the place. That's what makes it fun. All right, we're going to show this as metal. So let's do a little hatching. And then we'll come in here and lightly, sometimes even with my pen skipping, I show it. You can see how I'm just kind of making a little bit of a squiggly line, lifting my pen a few spots, and that gives us a little more texture on the corners so it doesn't look quite as smooth. We're going to take the tin, give it a little bit of depth. Like that. I have this brush pen. Color in my windows real quick. Back to the old one. I had to show this as a little bit of shade on this side. Just showing it's a little bit darker. Put some shingles on this side. All right, so it's kind of where the shading's at. So what I want to do is, let's go in and put wood siding, but let's do it as paneling. So let's put one here, dot. Kind of doing a little bit of a, kind of hard to see with the shading on there, but just trying to do a little bit of panel work. Instead of going horizontal, decided to go vertical. Let's put one in there. Put one in there. All right, so let's do the front. And it's not uncommon as it gets further away from you, get a little smaller. That's more of a tangent. I got to be careful with those. That's almost a tangent. So tangents when one line from something hits another line from something else, and it's hard to decipher between the two. So that right there would be a tangent. couple of boards in there. I like it. It's coming along. Sorry, I keep trying to whisper, and next thing you know, I'm sounding creepy. It's trying to whisper too much. All right, let's put some down here. That one would be there. All right, so that looks good. Just darken it up a little bit more. See, it's starting to take shape a little bit now. Getting a little character to it. Let's put another one right here. Make these a little shorter so we can show more character. All right, so let's go a little bit different. Let's go this way with these. Kind of like this was an add-on. Let's go smaller on this one. There we go. All right, got lines going all over the place. Another thing I like to do is I like to come straight down with some hatching. Show a little bit of, see how we have the dark line under there for like the showing of the shadow. So let's bring it down a little bit more because that's more of an overhang. So we'll give it a little bit taller of a shadow. And then on this edge where the water runs down, we'll give it a couple of flicks like it's been doing that for a few years. So you got water stains underneath the corners of the windows. Let's see. Let's do some hatching down. Let's go a little darker. So let's go the opposite direction. Light shade on these to knock them back just a little bit. Sometimes you can get your hatching a little too far apart. You want a little bit more. You kind of just go over it. There's really no rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of finding little spots, like under this window. It's going to cover up our nails, but that'll look good there. Our lantern, we'll leave some white to it just so it separates, so it didn't look like a black blob on the wall. Did forget this spot. A little more shading. And then this door is a little bit recessed. How do we want to do the door? Let's do a light. We'll do a window. The doorknob here. Put a couple of squares. All right, so this is recessed a little bit, so we're going to give it a little bit of shadow. We're going to do it from this corner. Make the corner a little darker. Almost made it too dark. That's all right. And then give a little definition to the stairs here. And then what I like to do for like the ground is I almost make this corner a little darker, a little jagged. I like to just kind of pull up from the ground. That, give a little depth. Give a little separation from the bushes. Shows a little bit of shadow maybe behind the bushes. Just kind of like the look of it. All right, so on the bushes, nothing, just squibbles. And then down here on the lower part, we'll give a little shading with some line work. A few little darker spots on the bushes. Get a little depth from the... It's a little bit different when doing with pen. You got to come up with ways to get depth. Like I said, there's a million ways to do it, and there's probably rules that you could follow that would make it like that. But again, I know a lot of the rules. I don't, it seems to be a little bit too stationary for me if you're following all the rules. Okay, one of the fun things that I like, the only thing I didn't care for, let me see if I can shorten. I got this hatching a little too far apart, so let's go in and see if we can. All right, that's a little better. Okay, one of the fun things I like doing is fences, because basically you're just scribbling. And then if you put a knot in and you go around the knot, kind of like you're going in circles. So it's just pretty. Now, this is a pretty small fence to paint, but it's kind of hard to show. I don't have an extra piece of paper that I can. And these are the metal hinges. I like to give them a little bit of point, kind of like the old gate hinges. Kind of like how this has a little heart or something. I don't know, a spade or something at the top. So that's my fence. But basically, I just barely hold the pin on there. And then if you do a knot, then you just kind of like go around in a circle a couple of times. So it gives it that spiral look around a knot. And then what I like to do is come in kind of how we did up here where we cracked a few of the shingles. You just kind of come in here and then you just real quick, just kind of bounce around, like no really purpose. And up here I'm a little bit cleaner just because I don't want it to be, we were on the ground earlier, so scribbling can make it look like the ground, whereas up here it's a little more freehand. All right, so we have that. Let's get a little separation from the house here. All right, we're getting there. Now, another thing I like to do is sometimes I like to just show when you're coming from a point, just to show a little bit more darkness, kind of like that. Just to me, it gives a little more, kind of like up here. I'd go a little bit more into the dark up there. And then for some reason on corners, I just like having a little bit of character on my corners. All right, let's see where we at. It looks like that has to go in right there. And then just, you're not drawing grass, you're just drawing the perception of grass. And then you can put in a little grass spot every now and then. Let's make these bushes a little darker on the bottom. Like I said, I'm not drawing any lines or anything, I'm just scribbling. Same way here, just putting in some dark spot. It's going to be dark right at the ground. Let's make it a little darker. You can see I'm just kind of scribbling. And then over here around the rock, you might have a little grass spot. I like to get a little maybe a little bit pulling away from the house there. As long as we keep that defined, there we go. Okay, and there's another one of those little corners, give it a little bit more Give it a little more separation. So you have a little bit of value here. Leaving that top of the bushes white to give a little bit of value from the house. So you can tell there's something there like a bush. A little dark on the... All right, so let's come out. Let's come out this way. Yeah, almost a little too heavy. I like it. Sometimes if it's not looking right, like they always say, you kind of get in that ugly phase. I didn't mean to crosshatch here, but I kind of like the look of it. That's what I'm saying. If you crosshatch, you crosshatch. Do what you want. Okay, this needs to be a little bit darker here. Get a little separation from the porch. I mean, it's your picture. If you want to crosshatch, you crosshatch. If you want to just regular hatch. Get a little depth on the doorknob. All right, we're gonna put a little bit of a, almost like there's a piece of molding there. Give a little bit of hatching. There's my corner again. I always kind of like to do that little extra. It's going to be a little darker on here. We'll leave a little bit of light there. We'll say that's a reflective light. It's because the sun's kind of coming this way. All right, so leaving this, whether it's wood or stone or whatever, I like to put just a little character right under it, like it's, let's see, what do we want to do on that? And then adding a little piece in here just makes it look like a frame. But I do like just adding a little line. I feel it just gives it a little, and then it's kind of a skip line. So you're kind of doing one of those where it's almost just a bunch of dots, summed along. So just gives it a little character. Just make this a little darker. So it's going to be a little shadow under there. Actually, this would be a heavy shadow, wouldn't it? Nope, that's already in shadow. So the sun would be in there. All right, so let's do like we said. We take this corner. So we come out, we make it a little lighter. Just to me, gives it a little bit of character. I like to do it on every corner, but Well, the fun thing about this, guys, is, man, you can work on this for hours and hours and hours and hours. But there's a certain point that you're better off just saying you're done. Now, I will say there's some areas that are probably overworked. There's some areas that could use more, like this area right here could probably use some more. But like I said, there's a point where it's okay, I'm done. So tell me what you think, guys. Again, if you like the and I'm sure there's some of you can do a lot better on hatching than I can. I just enjoy doing this, and I just make up stuff as I go, and that's part of the quirky houses I like. I just go with the flow, whatever I like. But again, there's single line drawings. If you go in the description, you can click on that, sign up for the email list, and it'll give you a downloadable link that you can download this little house on. Like I said, this is probably a little bit more. As you can see, these are meant for watercolor, so what I like to do is not quite detail as much as far as shading. And then when I watercolor, some of the color spots and stuff allow me to put in a little more shading because of the way the walls look and stuff. But you can see kind of how I was talking on the wood. When you come around a knot, you just make it look like there's a circle kind of around it, and not necessarily a circle, just an arch. And that gives it more of a knot feel, wood feel. Yeah, see like how these are. So you can see there's a little bit more done on this. Plus, this is stark white. This is kind of off-white. But I'm happy with that. I really like it. Just something about black and white sometimes. Like I said, did forget to color in the window. I love coloring and I love adding color to stuff, but there's just something about being able to keep it black and white. I do want to see. Let's go this direction. I do want to see a little bit more depth down here. Well, I hope that was fun. Again, it's good to know some of the rules. It's good to know some of I keep saying rules. It's good to know some of the fundamentals of hatching and all that other stuff. But the fun thing is knowing that and then still just doing what you want to as far as, it's kind of like what they say, when you know the anatomy, it's easier to draw the human anatomy. But the cool thing is when you do know the anatomy, you're able to bend the shapes and things a little bit more and kind of come up with your own style. So that's kind of what I've done here. I'm just coming up with my own style and just kind of doing however I want. Let's get this a little darker. Like I said, I like it a little darker down here along the bottom. Kind of like when I watercolor, I put my stuff at an angle and try to get some of the color to be darker at the bottom. It's kind of the same concept. And then if you wanted to, you could actually come in here and put some little wood grain in here if you wanted, just to give it a little depth, which might be kind of fun, just to put a couple lines in. Like I said here, I said sometimes you just got to stop or you'll mess with it and keep messing with it for hours. And here I'm messing with it for hours. So you notice I didn't go in and put detail on every board to make it look like wood. I just want to give it that hint of it. I really appreciate y'all jumping in on the journey, trying to figure out this process, see which is going to be better, if y'all would rather me do it without voice or with voice or both. It's new to me, and I really like y'all's feedback on it. So let me know down in the comments. And like I always say, if you made it this far, you might as well like and subscribe. Again, guys, I appreciate it. Until the next one.